Sandy, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me today.
I like to start every interview by asking guests, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh gosh, everything, which is funny because my 5-year-old daughter says the exact same thing. She's like, I
Oh,
want to be everything. I want to be a teacher, a scientist, a doctor. I wanted to be all the things. But I think primarily I was going down the education route. I thought I was going to be a teacher
mm, mm,
and a performer, a singer,
mm.
triple threat.
Well, and how do you think that connects to what you do today?
Yeah, so I work for Mr. Cooper. It is a real company. It's a real name. Cooper. I know. It's so strange. Mr. Cooper is essentially one of the largest mortgage servicers out there. We are not a bank, so we are a non-bank mortgage servicer. And I am the VP of social media and digital communications as of right now, but I'm transitioning to take on our DE&I.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so I'll soon be the VP of DE&I.
Very cool. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, and then also, would you mind touching on that you created a group here locally in Dallas that is how I got to know you and how I got to meet you?
So you'd like for me to share like what I'm passionate about?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I am the founder of Badass Ladies of DFW. Also, that is a real name of a real professional organization. So essentially what it is, it's a professional networking group of women and some men. I founded it in 2017. Listen, the plan was never to create a community. It just happened very organically. I was laid off in 2017. I was working for a global PR agency. We lost one of our major clients. We had global layoffs, happened to be one of them. And I planned a happy hour and just called it Badass Lady PR Happy Hour. Come one, come all. I needed a job, I needed a network. And it was just really successful and well attended because it was very organic and it was just word of mouth. It wasn't, sponsored by a company or anything. It was just like, hey, I put myself out there and I was vulnerable. And so after that happy hour, I just started a Facebook group and I was interviewing for jobs. And so I would say, hey, this is a great opportunity, wasn't the right fit for me. And so people just started posting. It's actually how I landed at Mr. Cooper is someone posted about this company with a funny name that happened to be like 4 miles from my house and was the perfect fit for me at the time. That's it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. It's interesting because a lot of people may find themselves in the situation you were in where they were laid off, but not a lot of people would think to do something like that, like a happy hour, even if it was organic and people you knew. That took a lot of courage, I would think.
Yeah. So I've always been, what you see is what you get all the time. So I'm not shy. I'm always going to put it out there. So yeah, I was in a place where in my career, I have always supported other people, helped other people connect with one another, find new opportunities, served as a referral reference, helped people with their resumes. I love doing that. It's something I'm really passionate about. And so I thought, you know what? I have paid it forward a lot. So I need to kind of reverse that back a little bit and go back to all those people that are part of my community and ask for help and get their support.
And that must have taken vulnerability too, right? If you were the person that usually is the connector and the supporter, and then now you needed it in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. No shame. I had no shame. I think it's because I had done it before for others. And I thought, well, now I need your help. And that's how I put it out there. It was just like, hey, I need to network. I'm looking for my next opportunity. Who can you connect me with? Yeah. And it took vulnerability, but honestly, it's not like I had a choice. I needed to find work. I needed to find my next opportunity. And I just thought, again, it was never intended to be a community. It was just me looking for support and looking to make connections with other people. But I think there was something to that vulnerability and just putting myself out there that people were like, I remember this distinctly, people saying like, we need to do this more often. We shouldn't be afraid of just putting it out there when we are vulnerable, when we need support, when we need a community to help us. And that's what really inspired me to start the Facebook group because I thought, well, this is so cool. This doesn't exist. And so, yeah, it just led to starting the Facebook group. And look at this. It led to the opportunity that I have now.
For sure. And something that stood out as you were talking was you said, I had no choice. I needed to find work. What's interesting is that as I'm coaching clients on career pivots, a lot of the time for clients, they're on the job search sites, they're submitting their resume. They're very good about, usually we're all really good about that kind of thing. But the networking piece, that seems to be missing for a lot of people. And even when exploring new careers, one of the things I ask clients to do is to reach out to someone who is in a role they're interested in and just do kind of like an informational meeting, no commitment, not trying to get hired, just to learn about the role and see if it fits, see if it's something that they might be interested in doing. And so the fact that you did that, even though you say you had no choice, it actually is very special because people have a lot of fear of rejection. So I think that's very special and something to be celebrated, that you just don't do it just for yourself. You're doing it for a community.
Yeah, thank you. To me, I didn't have a choice, but I could understand how that could seem really overwhelming. And depending on people's personality and situation, maybe not something that they would want to do to put themselves out there. I felt, again, like I had done it for others in the past. So there's no reason why, if I've connected you to somebody or I've served as a reference, why I can't ask you for the same thing. That's the thing about layoffs, is like they happen. What I hear once, if you never get fired from a job, then you're not doing something right. Or, like everyone, most people experience in their career layoff at some point.
Yeah, because there seems to be some shame around layoffs too, or being obviously fired, but like around layoffs, people tend to not want to talk about it as if they've done something wrong.
Exactly. And it can happen for so many reasons. I mean, business is business, right? You could be a high performer, and if your client budget is no longer there, it is what it is. And so I think it's also taking a step back and seeing the bigger picture and rationalizing that. Yeah, I remember I was shocked by the news. I remember I gave myself a week. I was like, okay, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to feel sorry for myself. I'm going to watch a lot of Netflix and whatever else. But then I'm going to get to work. Right? I'm going to be productive and I'm going to start networking. So you give yourself some grace. You can have a moment to have some self-pity and why me and this and that. That's fine. But then you got to get to work, because nobody's going to hand you a job. No one's going to hand you an opportunity. No one's going to hand you anything. That's not how it works. So it's a matter of what I always say, like, life is what you make of it. What are you going to make of the opportunities, or the opportunities that you don't have in front of you? How do you create those? Sometimes they don't even exist. And that was the case with Badass Ladies. It was a happy hour. Yeah. But then I realized there's not a community out there in DFW of women, at least in the industry I was at the time, which is PR communications. There's not a network of women that are openly supporting one another. So let's create it. Why not? What do we have to lose?
Well, and you talk about how you've been doing this even before you created Badass Ladies. How did you do that? So if someone's listening and thinking, I want to do that for people, I want to support people, how do you do that? Because I've experienced, you've connected me with people in the time that we've known each other. And it's something you seem to be intentional about and you think about. How do you go about doing that in your life?
Oh my gosh, it's like it never stops. It's all I think about when I meet someone. It's like, okay, they might know this person and that person. It's actually a problem. It's actually a problem. I need to work on that, because I almost always want to do that. And I think my husband in the past has been like, we don't have to do this all the time. Just, just enjoy your dinner. And, because it's not intentional. It's not, it's something that I've just always done. I think it's just part of my personality.
Because what's your belief there about connecting?
I definitely think it's one of my core values. I think that there's something to be said for connecting with each other, with one another, putting yourself out there. And that's my way of helping others. I find so much joy in that.
And they're so generous.
Okay, so now that's coming off as I'm like being super.
No, it really is. It's very generous.
It's not my intent. It's not my intention, I don't think, to be. It's just. It honestly just comes naturally. I just love it. I'm so passionate about making sure that people connect with one another, that we all find common ground. I don't know. I've always been that way. I'm not really sure where it comes from, but it's definitely one of my core values. I remember when I was in high school, I was always like, I was in the choir and theater, but then I was also the high school mascot. Cheerleading, like I did a little bit of every activity and involved in all of the different groups.
And you must have seen how those groups, how the similarities and common ground that these different groups shared.
They might not even be aware of. So just kind of being a chameleon and looking at all the different aspects of things, I always enjoyed that.
Mm. And you started this Facebook group and it created a community past the happy hour that would allow you to connect women. What have you learned from that community that you've started through Facebook, through the Badass Ladies group?
Yeah. So we started a Facebook group and it has grown significantly. So this was in 2017. And I quickly realized that there was a need for this. And people were so excited to connect with one another, to find common ground, to have support and have a place where they could be vulnerable and they could ask questions without being judged. And that was so refreshing. And it was just really powerful, the reaction and the response from so many women who really appreciated that, and how many women raised their hand to say, hey, how can I help? What can I do? And we're so supportive of helping to build and grow the community, right? So our website is badassladies.com. And that was not an inexpensive, obviously, domain to get, right? It was just so interesting. I thought, oh God, this isn't going to happen. How are we going to do this? And very, very quickly, we were able to raise the money.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was just, it still shocks me to this day. I don't want to say also generosity, but just how much people are willing to support and be part of the community. So I just love that so much. And we've never had an event that has been a flop. It's just always been people show up eager to meet one another, eager to be there and grateful. I'm telling you, it has been such a gift. And it was never my intention for it to be a community. I'm always honest about that. I never set out to do that. It just happened organically. It evolved into that. And I think that's what makes it so special.
It's the way you were leading, and you have been leading the group. I know you're not calling it your generosity, but it is a very generous approach, not like a competitive one where like there's scarcity of opportunities, but there's like a wealth of opportunities here. We can all help each other. You're modeling that, you're doing that, you're connecting people even before the group happened. And then people are eager to do the same. You're fostering that community, those feelings of connection.
I've never really thought about it that way, like modeling it. But I guess you're right. Yeah, you're right. I've never thought about it like that.
Even as you post on the group, I notice you'll post, here's an opportunity. And I heard about this other opportunity and that came up on LinkedIn. If anyone's interested, like very, again, generous. It might help someone in the group, might know someone who could benefit from it.
Yeah. You know what I love too is it's been amazing to meet women who have been able to really benefit from the group too, right? When we had our 2-year anniversary event, which now is 2 years ago, which just, wow, blows my mind. I remember there was a few women that came up and said, hey, I saw the posting on Badass Ladies and now I work with this person, or this person hired Badass Ladies. Oh my gosh. And now we love working together and this community brought us together. There's been so many situations like that where people connected, which I think is so cool, whether it was online, in person, through other Badass Lady events. I'm pretty sure that's how we connected, right?
Yes, yes. So I met you at Dr. Smith had an event. It's a doctor locally here in the Dallas area, Charleston House, and she was having an event for women. I think you were moderating the panel and you mentioned the group. And I think I joined on the spot while you were talking on the Facebook group, and then just started attending events. I've met Kendall, who is a friend, and love her. And she's connected me to other women. And so it's been such a positive experience for me. And I'm so grateful. So, so very grateful.
I love that. It's funny. Kendall's such a great example of such a supportive, amazing,
And a connector too.
She is. I mean, I can't call myself she's a mega connector. She's incredible. But Kendall and I met at the 2-year anniversary event. So she just came up to me and said, I'm an event planner. I own my own event planning company. If you ever need anything, please let me know. I'd love to help. And in that moment I said, can you help me right now? Because we got to make announcements and I got to get the music turned down. And I don't have a microphone.
I didn't know this.
She literally said, take your heels off, get on this table. I'm going to turn down the music. Everybody. I was just, okay, me and myself and this woman are going to be very, very good friends. I mean, she was not messing around. What can I do? Well, can you help me like right now?
Did you mean it? Because I need help now.
Right now. Yeah. And she's been instrumental in so many things. You know, what's interesting about Kendall is she helped me to really see the value and the worth. I think prior to meeting Kendall, it's not that I didn't take it seriously. I think I was just paying for everything out of pocket. And she made me realize, she's like, this is valuable and you shouldn't pay for this out of pocket, like if you want to help and it's okay. And so that I hadn't really given it, well, she's an entrepreneur. I am not. Okay. So she was really instrumental in helping me get to that place of, oh yeah, maybe I don't have to pay out of pocket for some of this stuff. So awesome. I have so much gratitude for her for really helping me see the value of the community and what people are willing to do to help. So I just really am grateful.
Well, if someone's listening, Sandy, and I see this in client conversations a lot where people feel disconnected. They don't feel like they're plugged into a community, whether they're wanting to change jobs or just for friendships, just to have that community of women who are going through similar experiences.
Yeah.
And, maybe they're not in Dallas locally. What would you tell that person? What would you tell that person who's listening, who's missing that community?
It's interesting because especially right now, I understand that. I do. I understand it. It's hard, but you have to be really intentional about it. It's not something that already exists. You're lucky if it does, right? So I happen to have grown up in DFW. My parents were very strict. I had to live at home and commute to North Texas. That's another story for another day. The point is, I've always been here. I went to school here. I've always worked here. I've always had a nice space, right? So I feel very fortunate in that way. But I think it's a matter of, for those that don't have that, that's not very common. It's a matter of putting yourself out there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I would love to, maybe it was you that told me this, to have a board of directors for your life, for your career. And I love that so much because there's certain people you go to for certain things. I don't think there's anything wrong to try to create that, right? You create that for yourself. That almost is like your own community. And I also think it's paying it forward too. So in order to create community with other people, it's also, how can I support you, right? So I have a lot of friends that are badass ladies and friends that I will go to for certain things. But then they come to me. So, it's never one-sided, right? So I think it's a matter of putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, but also being willing to give and take. So I'll help you, you help me, and just these relationships can't be one-sided.
And how can one go about putting themselves out there? If there's someone who's listening who just is in a new city, or maybe because of the pandemic, maybe they don't have the friendships or the relationships or sense of community, what would you say to someone now? How would you go about, so this is you, because I think this is one of your strengths. You are starting over, you're in a new city, you're feeling a little disconnected. There's not an immediate community or support system. How would you get started?
Well, I'll tell you the example. I'm experiencing that to some extent a little bit. I'll tell you why. So I'm transitioning from this more comms social media role into the world of DE&I. And I have experience in DE&I, but more from a communication standpoint. This role is 100% D&I. It includes diverse recruiting, a lot of change management. It's a new world for me, right? So it's a stretch. And I'm so excited about the challenge and the opportunity. But I went to an event this week. It was an HR roundtable at SMU, and it was about DE&I. And I knew nobody there. Nobody. I was like, well, this is the first time I've been somewhere. I don't know anyone here because it's a completely different skill set, industry, community. So it was all HR professionals. So I'm experiencing that too. I think what I did was I just try to find common ground with people. And this was an in-person event, but just walked right up to them and introduced myself and just put the vulnerability out there. Just said, so yeah, this is new to me. I'm transitioning into this role. This is the first time I've attended one of these events. I'm new to this group, and just putting myself out there and then I found some common ground with a few of them, and then immediately followed up via LinkedIn. And now I have lunch dates with people.
So you followed up with these people after on LinkedIn and said, hey, let's have lunch? Or how did that go about?
Yeah, exactly. So there's someone that works at Smoothie King, and it's right by the Mr. Cooper office. And although I don't office out of the Mr. Cooper office, let's go to lunch. Okay. I don't have the heart to tell her I'm not actually across the street from you, but I would love to go. But so it's just putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, finding common ground, and then following up. Right. So I've experienced it. I'm currently going through that now. I also reached out to some of my board of directors and told them about this new role. And one of my contacts said, I would love for you to meet my mentor. because she would have some great advice for you in terms of how to prioritize where to start with all of this. So yeah, I mean, it really is like, you really don't know until you ask. People are willing to help. You say it's being generous. It makes me feel good. Okay. So I don't know. There's something to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people are willing to help. It makes you feel good when you feel like you're helping somebody.
Even as you're talking, I'm like, oh, I need to connect Sandy to my friend Lisa, who has done DE&I for 30 years. Yeah. So I'm thinking, I'm going to connect. She was on the podcast too. She's great. So, it's interesting that you said vulnerability, because I had two people on the podcast, Ted and Ashley, who just wrote a book on how to cultivate connections. And one of the things they said was, one, being really relaxed and really present and really listening to the other person. And then also being vulnerable, being willing to share. And I love that you just shared the vulnerability piece, because I think that may be something that we may not necessarily think about right at first. So the fact that you called out that, hey, this is my first time and I feel a little uncomfortable, I'm a little nervous, or that, I imagine for someone on the receiving end must have been like, automatically gravitate to you. She's being honest.
Yeah, there was one woman that even said to me, I said that to her and she said, nobody knows this, but I'm pregnant. Oh my God. So immediately we would just form this, so she kind of told me her secret, I told her mine. There's something to be said if you kind of lead with that to some extent, obviously.
Not overly sharing, right?
Right.
Where it's uncomfortable, but yes, but being vulnerable.
Yeah, being vulnerable. It was, and then the way she brought it up was like, well, so I'm gonna have to like transition some work, that kind of thing. But it was just interesting that I led with professional vulnerability, and she responded right back with her own professional vulnerability. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and then you said finding common ground, and then I love how you close that off with the following up, right? These are all things that were in your control, being vulnerable, trying to find common ground as you're talking with someone and following up. Yes, maybe the person doesn't respond, but you're doing the things that are in your control and kind of closing that up, that loop of connecting with someone.
100%. So that's what I've done. That's the most recent example of something that I did in person. It's hard when everything is virtual, which is the world that we're living in now to some extent. How many LinkedIn messages do you get where people are selling you things? And they're things that even, obviously, they didn't read my profile because that doesn't even apply. It's not even applicable to what I do and who I am. So I think that's hard to break in, but I love what you said about finding someone that is in the role you want or the role that you're interested in. That's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door with somebody. If it's kind of a cold introduction, if you will. I also, using the connections you do have to make those introductions are also important, right? So Kendall introduced us, right? So officially introduced us.
Yeah.
So that made it so much easier because we had common ground. So I think it's thinking through that too. So reaching out to your contacts. I'd love to, you're connected to this person. I'd love to talk to that person.
And maybe this doesn't come up for you, but I know I struggle with this where I worry about reaching out to someone and saying, could you introduce me to someone else? I get a little in my head about that. How do you think about that so that doesn't like stop you?
I don't. I don't get in my head about it.
What is it that you're thinking as you're doing that? Because there must be a belief under there that it's not a bad thing, right? Because so for me, I'm thinking it's a bad thing. It's annoying. I'm annoying someone or I'm asking too much of someone.
I don't know. I mean, I think at the end of the day, nobody's better than anybody else. So your time is just as valuable as my time, valuable as the next person. So I don't know. I think, yes, there's fear of rejection. I get that 100%. But there is also the opportunity to grow your network, and we're all supposed to be doing. That's how we learn from one another. We have to make connections. So I always keep that in the back of my head. And at the end of the day, you don't have anything to lose, right? You really don't. If your contact doesn't want to make the introduction, okay, I understand. I don't really know that person. Okay, no worries. That's fine. You have nothing to lose. If your contact makes the introduction and that person doesn't respond, okay, they're busy. Okay.
You don't make it about you. It wasn't a reflection of you.
It's never a reflection of you. It's never a reflection of you. It's their loss. They don't want to talk to me. That's their loss.
I think that's going to help so many people because for a lot of people, myself included, we can get in our head about it.
So what's the worst thing that can happen? You don't get a response. Okay. That's the worst thing that can happen.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Sometimes I heard this recently on a podcast where our fear is the feelings we're going to have when the thing happens. Because the rejection is like they don't send a reply, but we're worried about the feeling of being rejected. And that keeps us from taking action, like sending the email to potentially connect with someone.
Yes. Yes. And thinking about it as the emails that I mentioned that I receive on LinkedIn that
Mhm.
maybe don't have anything to do with what I do for a living or who I am,
Mhm.
I don't respond to them. Okay.
Mm.
You think I'm thinking about those emails and that person that sent those emails? Nope. So if you think about the other side of it, right? If you flip
Mm.
the coin, it's like, it's not a reflection on that person, that it's me. That does not apply to what I do.
Mm.
That's
Yeah, no, yeah, that's great. And I love that you used the word opportunity earlier. You said you think of it as an opportunity. If they don't respond or it doesn't fit or they don't, I don't know that person that well or whatever. Okay. But the potential for opportunity in your mind is bigger, higher than whatever might happen if they don't respond.
absolutely. If you weigh the pros and cons, it's always worth it to reach out, send that email. The worst thing that happens, again, is that you might not get a response. Well, that's fine. But at the end of the
Mm.
day, you could be missing incredible opportunities. You never know where we always talk about your intern can be a CEO one day. You just never know where people are going to land, what
Mm.
kind of relationships you could have with people professionally, personally. Yeah, that's the worst thing that can happen.
Mm.
Crickets. That's okay.
Well, and then how do you maintain the relationships once you've made them? So let's say you've connected with someone, you hit it off, you go to lunch with this person from Smoothie King. How do you stay in touch? How do you look at it? How do you maintain those relationships? Because people who know you love you, Sandy, and really respect you. And you seem to be, it's not like you meet them and then you're gone, you're a ghost. You cultivate those relationships.
Thank you for saying that because the last year and a half, I don't feel like I've cultivated anything, to be honest
Mm.
with you. That's
Mm.
really hard.
Mm.
It's been really hard for
You
everybody.
had a baby, we were in a pandemic.
I had a baby, we were in a pandemic. My husband didn't work and was going through a deep depression for a year and a half, all at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. And not to make this too, well, TMI, too personal, but
No, but this is important because this is part of your life and this is what
yeah,
everyone's going through.
yeah,
We're whole beings experiencing all different pieces
yeah.
in our life.
This has changed our world and our life forever, right? The way we look at everything is different. No matter what your opinion is about anything, the world has changed and it will be forever changed in some form or fashion. So I'll say for me, Badass Ladies is a perfect example of how the pandemic has affected at least my life and my personality. I'm a different person. I'm a
Mm.
totally different person. And maybe it's a phase and maybe this will end and I'll evolve back into the person I was before. But
In what ways are you different?
yeah, so I don't feel as extroverted
Mm.
as I used to be. I think that being an extrovert is all about where you get your energy, right? And I have realized the last year and a half plus is the most productive I have ever been in my career, ever. I've turned into a bit of a recluse. I think it's a bit of a combination too, in like the stage of life of having a young child. So you don't really leave the house that much anyway. You kind of are a homebody already. But I am having the hardest time thinking about our next Badass Ladies in person event. I
Mm.
am struggling with
Mm.
it. I
I
just,
think you're not alone though. I've seen this in conversation with friends, with clients, and for myself, I'm an extrovert as well. I get my energy from people. And the thought of I haven't returned to in person events yet because I have some anxiety about it.
yeah,
I have a baby, I have a 6 month old, I have a 3 year old. I just have anxiety about it.
yeah.
And I think that's a lot of people.
The SMU event was, I think it was the first event that I went to, and I felt I had to go. I had to go. I'm transitioning into this new role. I had to go to this. It was a colleague that said, you need to go to this.
Mm.
And I did. I did it. I was in the moment, fine, but I'm still exhausted from it. This
Mm.
was Wednesday night. Yeah, I am exhausted.
We're recording this Friday. So this is a few days ago. Mhm.
48 hours later, I'm still exhausted from it. Now,
Mm.
I'm not saying I don't regret going. I love the speaker. He was amazing. I made some great contacts, but I'm exhausted. And it just goes to show it's just hard. We at Mr. Cooper, we are home centric. So we all work remotely right now, and we probably will always. And I cannot imagine going back into the
Mm.
office. There's been a few days where I've had to go back for 2 days, be in the office for whatever reason. Like, how did I do this? 5 to 9 to
Yeah.
5, whatever. Yeah, it's hard. So keeping those connections, going back to your original question, cultivating those relationships, I have not done a good job of that, Lupe, and I'm being honest. I
Thank you
haven't.
for sharing that.
I haven't. And I have a lot of guilt about that. And a little bit, yeah, I've got a guilt. I have some guilt for the Badass Ladies community as well. And I had this conversation with my friend Alejandra the other day. The moment that it feels like a chore is when we have a problem. And I am having anxiety about it. So we had planned an event for October in person and we canceled it just because it was the Delta variant was becoming a thing and kids had just gone back to school. And I did not want to appear irresponsible because God forbid we have a super spreader event and I want to be so careful. So we postponed it. And I think we're going to do it maybe February of next year. But I am telling you, I was having so much anxiety about it. So much anxiety. There was the COVID, are we being safe? Do we limit the amount? So there's that whole aspect of it that takes away the fun. And it's also, oh my gosh, like, what are we going to do? It's a lot to think about. And there's just a lot of anxiety there. So I think that COVID has changed me. One, because so many things in my life were and have changed, from working from home to dealing with my husband's mental health issues to having another child to being used to being a bit of a recluse and actually liking it.
I feel that. So when you announced the event, the October event, I signed up. I wanted to go because I wanted to see you. I wanted to see Kendall and, connect with other women. I love connecting. That fuels me. But I had a sense of dread about it because I thought, oh my God, I have this baby. Is it irresponsible for me to go when I have this, at that point, 5-month-old baby? Should I go? Maybe I shouldn't go. I'm taking someone's ticket. It was a free event. And so I think we're not alone in feeling that way.
You're right. You're right. Everybody's got their own perspective, right? For whatever reason.
Right. But we're all craving connection though.
But we're craving connection at the same time. It's such a contradiction. What is wrong with this?
Well, I wonder if what came up for me is like, I know a lot of people are zoomed out, but I've been at events where there's still that connection that happens. Like they have breakouts or one-on-one speed networking. And I've been able to connect with people now, or even for me, I've been so lucky. I feel selfish too. Some people might say it's generous to have the podcast, but I also feel selfish because I get to have conversations like this
all the time,
one-on-one, and I get to connect. And that is so fulfilling for me. I have this avenue to connect with women one-on-one, and I get to share this conversation with others, but I also get to ask all the questions and connect and not feel alone. So I think people are still craving that. And maybe it's going to look a little different, and that's okay.
I'm so envious that you get to do this because, well, one, you're so approachable. So people feel like they can share anything with you. You just you make it so easy. So yeah, I mean, you're lucky in that sense, but I do think it's hard for so many of us that don't have that. And I'll tell you, my friend circle or community has gotten much smaller, not really by choice. It's just people grow apart and things happen. And if things aren't a habit, and then if you don't have that commonality anymore or whatever that may be, it's fine. It's okay. But I think that we just need to be mindful of that as we look to figuring out what is normal going to be. Maybe it'll make me more aware of the relationships that I do have. Sure. I'm still figuring it out. I do think though that I am not as much of an extrovert as I thought I was. And that is weird.
Thank you for sharing that, because so many people are going through this phase of life is different now, accepting that. How am I going to move in the world now? And then connection is so important for all of us. And so the fact that this is one of your strengths, this is one of the things you do so well, and you're struggling with it. Thank you for sharing that, because that's going to allow people to feel seen. Like, I'm struggling with it too. I'm a coach. I have these conversations. I work through these things, and I still struggle with it. I'm constantly thinking, I'm like, what do I need to do? My husband's like, do you need to get out? Do you need to go see your best friend? What do you need to do so you don't feel lonely? One of the things I found recently, a couple months ago, a friend suggested it. It's an app called Marco Polo.
Oh, Lupe.
Do you use it?
These are the only people I speak to are the people that are on Marco Polo. So
oh my God.
You're going to be my new Marco Polo buddy because I have the premium subscription where
I'm about to pay for the premium. Yeah.
Life-changing. Life-changing.
So for the audience who's listening, so Marco Polo is an app, and I remember getting it a few years ago and I didn't really use it. It didn't stick. But my friend said, you should download it again, try it out. This is how I keep in touch with people. She's really bad at text messaging. My best friend's horrible at text message. She never responds. She'll read it. She'll respond on Instagram. She won't respond to a text message. So I'm like, maybe this will be good. We like to FaceTime, but we never have the same
Yeah.
time where we can available. So this is a video messaging. It's free, or we can pay for premium. I'm about to pay for the premium, but if, basically you record a selfie of yourself talking. And at first I was very uncomfortable recording myself. But I got through it. Now it's comfortable. And now I get to stay in touch with friends. And I feel like I'm in touch with them so much more. It feels so much better than text messaging, so much better than Instagram. I just ramble. I feel like it's a podcast sometimes. Sometimes I'm driving and I'm listening to my friends talk.
I was just going to say, you shouldn't feel uncomfortable taking the selfie video, because how often are you actually watching the Marco Polo? You're probably just listening to your friend talk. You're not watching her speak into the phone. You're just probably doing a million things. And she's like, well, so then I went through the Starbucks line. It was crazy. It's not going to happen. Meanwhile, you're like changing a diaper or whatever. I love it.
Me too. And I think that could be helpful for so many people. There's people you want to stay in touch with, and this just makes it easy. And now I talk to my best friend and my sister way more than I ever did.
Yes.
And it's all virtual.
Yes.
So
I love that. Yeah. My sister-in-law introduced me to Marco Polo when my 5-year-old was born. And she said, oh, because she was living in LA at the time. She's like, oh, with the time change, I'm never going to FaceTime and get to know Amelia and see her. So my college friends and I were all over the country. We use this app. And I thought, oh, okay, whatever. And then I started using it. And it's literally the people that I'm the closest to are the people that are in Marco Polo. Because I'm able to I have an old coworker in Toronto, one in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and we're so close because of the Marco Polo app. So it's crazy, but it's so like intimate, right?
yeah.
Because I've used it when like getting ready, and
I'm in my pajamas
driving
after drop off.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. So what other ways do you think could be possible in this new world that we could connect, even if you're not doing them just yet?
Yeah. I mean, Marco Polo is just, I love it. But so what's been interesting for me is, so I know my love language is time, so important to me. And so what I've been doing is I have started to make myself reach out to certain people and just have one-on-one time, do a lunch. So I mentioned this person, she asked to go to lunch. We're going to go to lunch. A few weeks ago, there was someone that I hadn't seen in a really long time. And I just said, I know you moved closer. You're in the neighborhood. Let's go to lunch. So just trying to proactively make myself have these one-on-one times helps me stay connected to the best version of myself, because I thrive off connections, right? It's just hard to do them in large settings, lots of people at this point in time. So just easing back into it a little bit, I think has helped me. And then I leave there. I'm thinking about my lunch with an old colleague, Lauren, from a few weeks ago. I left there so refreshed and energized, whereas meeting with a large group of people would be difficult. I think that, and then I do have like 3 or 4 girlfriends that I'm very close to, and we make it a point to see each other once a month. We'll go to dinner, it'll be 2 hours, whatever.
And how do you get it done? Do you have someone in charge for the month? What's the logistics of that?
Basically, it's set up a month in advance. And some of these girls are your moms, or they're working moms, or they're stay-at-home moms, or single, no kids, God bless them, so lucky. Time and all the things, time and money, all the things we don't have. So every different phases of life, it really does just depend. But yeah, we typically just plan it a month in advance. I mean, in September, we set the date for our holiday brunch.
Oh, fun.
This was in September.
So fun. And how do you follow through?
We have a reservation. We have to go. Book the babysitter, tell the husband, do whatever you got to do, but we have a reservation and you just make it happen. I'm very grateful that my husband understands that, because that can be tough too, right? Because then it's a sacrifice for him to deal with the kids and juggle this and that and bath time, dinner time, all that. But he understands that that is important to me. Whereas pre-pandemic, it was always, I have to go to spin class for an hour, at least on a Saturday or Sunday. And he knew that was my thing. It was like an hour and 45 minutes for me to go, come back and do whatever. But that was like our thing. And then he has his thing, like he's on his annual hunting trip with the guys right now for a week or however many days. So that's like our non-negotiable, is good for my soul. I need to do this. So once a month, I have a couple hours where I get together with my girlfriends, because those are like the 3 or 4 ladies that I need to have some chisme time with. We get down into it, whatever you want to call it.
Chismes gossip.
Yes, I'm a chismosa. No, I love to call myself that, which it's gossip, but it's different because it's like
fun.
The scoop. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to have that. It feeds the soul.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'm feeling motivated. I'm like, ooh, what do I need to plan to get things done? I am thinking about a conversation recently with a client, or several clients, really, this has come up before, but sometimes we're feeling isolated at work. So maybe our work does not, maybe we're on a new team, a new role, and there's not the same sense of connection with our team members anymore. And maybe they're like us. I'm a connection person too. So we're not getting that at work. And so then we're just kind of feeling drained, not motivated. And so just being aware of, hey, I need connection several times a week. For me, I thought maybe once a week for me in terms of like, but now I get to deal with clients and that's very fulfilling for me. But I know I need to connect once a day. Like if I sit on my computer all day writing or working on something, I feel so drained. And so I need to step away to lunch with my husband or call up a friend, being aware of what we need.
Yes.
In order to stay motivated and fueled. I imagine if you go a few months without seeing your girlfriends, you're going to feel pretty down.
Yeah. So having those things, like what are the things that identifying those things that you feel make a difference for you, whether it's, like I said, the spin class for me was, I get so much, it's kind of like when people say, oh, I do my best thinking in the shower. I feel like when I leave a spin class, I just had the best idea, related to work or thing I want to do for the house or the kids or something. But there's always something that sparks when I get that hour or 45 minutes to ride the bike, because I know you're a Peloton person. So it's like finding what are those things that are important to you. And then the other thing I want to mention is when you were saying I'm craving connection and I'm not getting that at work for whatever reason, something I'm really passionate about is my job is never going to define me or who I am. It just never will. I'm never going to walk into the room and someone's going to say, that is the VP of Mr. Cooper. No, I don't want that. I'm not striving for that. That is not what I want. I'm always going to kick ass at my job. I'm always going to 150 freaking % every time, no matter what. But it doesn't define me. So I think there was a time in my life where I did really cool, sexy work, all kinds of cool stuff when I worked for PR agencies and traveled and whatever. Great. That was a period of my life. I am in a different place in my life where it's just, I can't travel like that. And I can't let my job consume me. And I don't think it ever will again. And I don't want it to, right? There's different phases of your life where your job does consume you. You have to prove yourself and you build your reputation. Yes, work really hard to get to that next step and then the next step. But the thing about Badass Ladies that I love is that fills a need that I would never get at work. So I do think that this community has helped fill that void for me. In a parallel path, also being a professional, working very hard, but that doesn't define me. It doesn't define the person that I am. Again, I never want it to. I want it to be the things like being a mother, a wife, a good friend, a connector. That's what I want my life to shape out to be. And that's what I want to be known for, not what I get paid to do.
Oh, and I love your passion as you talk about that. There's so much passion, there's so much conviction there as you talk about that. And I think a lot of people can find themselves in a point where work is all there is, and they're trying to get out of that. They're trying to make space and room for the other things, the relationships, the friendships, the partner in their life. So I love that you just shared that, because I think that's going to resonate with people.
I also think you have to make sacrifices, though. I'll say that, because there have been opportunities that have come my way. And professionally, those opportunities didn't fit with my life, right? So maybe that would have allowed me to be a EVP instead of a VP or an SVP or whatever else. Okay. But I'm never going to get the time back with my kids. I'm never going to get that back. So what's important to me right now is making sure that I have that work-life balance, right? And you, Lupe, are the one that helped me get there, right? And so I've always said, I will never be defined. I will never be defined by what I do at work. That is not the case. But the way that you just gave me that aha Oprah moment was really, really cool.
Thank you, Sandy. That means so much.
Yeah. And I talked about it when I did the PRSA webinar summit. Basically, we had a Badass Ladies virtual event basically it was featuring you, Lupe, right? Talking about specific tools to help you manage stress. Am I going down the right path?
Yeah. I don't remember what the topic was, but I shared a
No.
bunch of tools
So,
that I thought would be helpful for the group.
and it was like in the height of just lockdown, and we just really needed to hear what you were sharing with us as far as like coping with the stress and the, oh my God, what the hell is happening in the world? What is going to happen next? It was the height of it. And you said, we basically were said, think about your dream job, not like, oh, I want to work for this company, but the characteristics of the job, write those things down. What are they? And I did. And I was like, holy crap, this is literally the job I have right now. And I needed that. I can't even, I'm going to get emotional.
I know, I can hear the emotion, Sandy.
Yes, I needed that in that moment so badly. I just was pregnant and throwing up every day. My husband was unemployed in this deep spiraling depression and locked up raw in this house, which is like the walls were caving in. We didn't know what was going on in the world. I wasn't sure, like, how are we going to just live? Not even like financially, just like, how is this going to work? And that little bit of just, it was light. It was a little bit of light of like, okay, let's change the perspective because this is a positive and we need to look at it that way. And I just, God, I can't thank you enough for that. It really meant so much. It really did. God, now I'm getting emotional. But I
thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
I took that, and I have to tell you, I took that and it made me really think about the role that I had and what I was doing. And I thought, well, how can I make the best of the situation I'm in right now? Because I felt a little bit stuck, but I managed to think about it a little bit differently and think, okay, what could I do here while I'm here in this role, in this time with this organization? What can I do? And I managed to be able to create, basically build out a new path, which is this D&I transition. So, and it all, I have to tell you, it all started with that aha moment with you. That's literally where it all started. And I'm still benefiting from it because, like I said, I'm moving into transitioning into this because it was just that little tweak of, let's think about it a little bit differently, you know?
Yeah. And the activity I have clients do, which is what we did in that session, was walking through from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. What does your ideal work day look like? What do you do in the morning? What do you do at work? Are you working from home? What time does your day end? What does lunch look like? What do your evenings look like? It's like our brain starts trying to figure out how to get there. But a lot of the times what happens is that we're actually a lot closer than we think. There's tweaks and things that we can do now. And so it sounds like you had on how there was this thinking of like, it's going to be in the future that you were actually, you could already live that type of day, but just kind of changing some of the perspective that you had on it.
Totally. 100%. I just love that.
Thank you for sharing. I think that's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for being so vulnerable and honest.
No, thank you. I mean, you have everything to do with that. So I have you to thank. That's why I was so grateful when you asked me to join you today. Absolutely. I feel like I need to pay it forward because I owe you now for having that moment.
No, I was grateful for the opportunity to get to share and to get to be a part of it, of the group, and give back to a group that's given me a lot. So thank you.
I love that.
So if someone's local or maybe they're not and they want to join the group, how can they learn more about Badass Ladies, you? How can they follow along?
Yeah. So Badass Ladies, our most active online platform is going to be on Facebook. So if you just look up Badass Ladies of DFW, the S's are $signs. On Facebook, you'll find us there. We're also on LinkedIn. So Badass Ladies of DFW there. And then our website, badassladies.com. And we are on Instagram, but I got to tell you, this pandemic, I don't want to ever make it feel like it's a chore. And Instagram was one of those things that I had to say, what is it that I can do today that doesn't feel like a chore? Instagram was one of them. So we have an Instagram, but don't even worry about it. I can't. You can only do so much.
Yes. Well, and I'll be sure to link those, the Facebook group and the LinkedIn, on the show notes for the podcast.
That would be amazing. And you don't even have to be in DFW. What I'll say is there are people from all over. I mentioned my colleagues in Canada and Brazil, they're on the page. So all types of, even like Houston, Austin, we've got folks from all over the country and beyond. And what I love about what's happening now is so many positions are remote. So that is
Yes.
expanding the reach of Badass Ladies significantly. And I absolutely love that because you can basically work from anywhere virtually. So it's just another great reason why I need to think about our name. Oh gosh, now I've got to think about rebranding. Here we go.
Well, your domain is Badass Lady, so you didn't put DFW in there. So, well, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Lupe. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you. You are just a breath of fresh air.
Oh my God, thank you.